Good morning, everyone. Welcome to MSO's last educational seminar series. I am Sue Quimby, Senior Vice President of MSO Inc. Joining me as hosts today are MSO CEO and President Jan Seitz. Providing technical assistance is Cassidy Cody and Mary Beagle. You should all have received the link for the digital program, which is also on your screen. Copies of the PowerPoints will be available upon request. The digital program includes the presenter bios, session descriptions, and our sponsor ads. Please take a time to look at this and thank our sponsors. Take a minute to note the antitrust statement. We will not discuss or answer questions that might address any trade secrets. Next is the disclaimer. Copies of these, as you see, are in the digital program or available upon request if you have trouble sleeping at night. We'd love to thank our generous sponsors they're on the screen and in the website. They help us to provide these quality educational programs, webinars, ed seminar, and the golf outing. Annual and event sponsorship opportunities are available. Please contact us for information. MSO is pleased to have offered the 4-hour educational seminars for over 10 years. We originally started this back many years ago and did them in person in various states. And then when COVID hit, we switched to virtual. So we will be switching it up this year for 2026, offering 4 webinar sessions totaling 10 credits, including a 3-hour ethics presentation on March 12th, which I know everybody needs ethics. We welcome suggestions for presenters and topics for our webinars, and the schedule can be found on our website, msonet.com. If you missed any previous webinars, they are available for on-demand viewing on our website, msonet.com. They will also be available on our YouTube channel at the Mutual Service Office, and links for these will be in the chat during the session. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Cassidy will list these in the chat as well as the schedule of we also have the schedule of webinars for 2026 that we can give you. You may have seen our training flyer. We offer CE and non-CE training for member companies, agents, and other industry members. In 2026, our goal is to be licensed as a school in 50 states. We're currently at about 38. Contact us for more information or if you'd like to run a class. About the first session, John Anello is an associate in the New Jersey office of Callahan Fusco and brings a diverse set of litigation skills to the firm. He's maintained an insurance practice for more than 5 years and currently devotes his practice to insurance defense, products liability, personal injury, and commercial litigation. He's admitted to practice in New Jersey and New York, and he has done several presentations on fraud, including for us for the insurance industry. His session is Scams, Scandals, and Shakedowns, and this will offer an overview about the growing problem of fraud in the construction industry. Welcome, John.
Good morning, Sue. Thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm going to present on scams, scandals, and shakedowns with a particular focus on New York labor law. However, I think those of you who don't practice or are licensed in New York can still draw out some principles and get some tips here on addressing fraud as I'm seeing it in more than just the New York construction industry. My firm has offices throughout the East Coast, in Georgia, Connecticut, Florida, and we're seeing more and more fraudulent claims in not only construction but in transportation and other areas. So my hope today is that everybody can get something out of this, even if you are not a practitioner in New York. So the goals of this presentation are essentially to determine how and why New York labor law claims attract fraud, how insurers are recognizing and addressing fraud, and what we all can do, insurers, underwriters, adjusters, to address and expose fraud in all claims, really. New York, unfortunately, was ranked as the #2 judicial hellhole by the American Tort Reform Association. It's estimated that insurers and insureds spend $89 billion in excessive legal costs due to how New York addresses and handles personal injury litigation, in particular, New York labor law. Philadelphia is number one, in case anyone was wondering. So I guess if you live or practice in New York, thank God for Philadelphia. New York labor law 240. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, I'll just run through a brief overview here. The statute imposes absolute liability for elevation related hazards. There is no contributory negligence defense. That absolute liability is upon owners and contractors of construction sites, general contractors, who fail to provide or erect safety devices necessary to give proper protection to workers exposed to elevation-related hazards. The statute's designed to protect workers from these gravity-related hazards, such as falling from a height, and New York courts liberally construe it to accomplish the purpose for which it was framed. Owners and contractors that are not actually involved in the actual construction work can be held liable regardless of whether they exercise supervision or control over the work, and this duty cannot be delegated by statute. And as I said, a worker's contributory negligence is not a defense to liability under Labor Law 240, and that is taken very seriously by New York courts. It doesn't matter if a worker is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, doesn't have proper training. The worker is not liable. Contributory negligence doesn't matter. There's only where a plaintiff's own actions are the sole proximate cause of the accident can there be no liability, and New York courts narrowly construe that. It's very difficult to establish that a plaintiff's own actions were the sole liable cause of the accident under New York law. As you might imagine, this is a very old law. It was enacted in 1885. New York is the only state that still has this type of law. Illinois got rid of it back in the 90s. There were several other states that had these types of laws, but New York is the only one that still has it on their books. It was originally intended to address 19th century unsafe scaffolding practices, and at the time, that was certainly an issue and certainly worth addressing as the first skyscrapers were going up in New York. Now it is an antiquated law. There's workers' compensation. There's other social safety net programs that can help injured workers. As studies show that this statute does not offer any more protection than is available to workers in the other 49 states who can sue, by the way, if they are injured on the job. They just have to go about it in a normal way with no absolute liability. There's comparative negligence and whatever standards apply in that state. For comparison to other states, insurance costs in New York are 40 to 50% more than in neighboring states such as Connecticut and Pennsylvania when compared to similar projects. The number of scaffold law cases has also increased 500% since 1990, though the rate of injury has decreased nationally as job sites impose and construction companies impose greater safety precautions. Yet we still see these claims increasing largely because of the absolute liability that they impose on contractors and owners. The prevalence of construction lawsuits in New York is something to also take note of. In New York, there is one personal injury case for every 2.74 million in construction payroll. In the rest of the U.S., there's one action for every 37 million in New York payroll. So you can see how prevalent personal injury cases are in New York, and we think that has a great deal to do with New York's labor law. New York's general liability insurance costs for construction are the highest in the country. The costs of New York labor law, needless to say, are very, very high. Um, 785 million in annual costs for publicly funded projects. This is according to the Rockefeller Institute for Government from a 2023 study that they did. Insurance brokers estimate that the strict liability of Labor Law 240 adds 200 to 400 million in insurance costs for projects like the Mario Cuomo Bridge in New York City. The School Construction Authority paid $240 million in insurance costs for projects conducted since 2020 in the city. The Hudson Gateway project, which is currently underway, if you want to call it that, is going to incur between 180 and 300 million in additional insurance costs due to the scaffold law. In fact, unfortunately, we're seeing some insurers pull out of New York entirely or writing exclusions for these types of gravity related accidents because the costs are just too much and make some projects not economically feasible. The type of fraud we're seeing in New York labor law cases is similar to fraud we're seeing in other cases as well, motor vehicle, trucking accident cases, even slip and falls. The most egregious, I think, are probably staged accidents where workers either intentionally fall off of a ladder or from a height. And by the way, under labor, it doesn't have to be everyone thinks, falling off of a building. It can be that, but it could also be falling from a ladder or even a stool, any height. Really, there is a minimum standard, but it's very, very low. Even a few inches or a few feet triggers this statute. So it's not just people that fall off of the tops of skyscrapers. You can fall from the first or second step of a ladder, claim massive injuries, and the contractor or the owner will be held strictly liable for whatever damages you can prove that you've incurred as a plaintiff. So we'll see staged accidents like that because it can be very, very lucrative for plaintiffs and for some of these fraud rings that are developing to take advantage of this law. We're seeing the use of runners to recruit plaintiffs, and a lot of these people are tied in with very less than reputable groups, let's say human traffickers that smuggle people across the border, other criminal organized crime organizations. A lot of these cases are still in their infancy, but we are seeing a great deal of runners who are recruiting plaintiffs for firms, and they themselves are tied to very unsavory organizations and people. So certainly something to explore on any case is to determine how the plaintiff found their law firm. A lot of times the referrals are less than kosher. We also see accidents that either never occurred, or if the accident did occur, again, a guy falls off the second or third rung of a ladder and then has greatly exaggerated injuries that prevent him from, or so they say, prevent him from working for the rest of his life. And then you'll see once they make these claims and start their suits, they're in the pipeline, let's call it, of obtaining unnecessary surgeries and treatment from doctors who are often in on and have a financial incentive to have these surgeries done. And we're seeing collusion between law firms, clinics, and third party litigation funding companies who will often put uh, liens out there on any recovery. And the liens, because there's really no regulation on this stuff, the liens can be 30, 40, 50% compounded annually. By the time they get a settlement, the person or the plaintiff doesn't have much money. A lot of it goes back to the law firms or the litigation companies who have lent them money and then are charging usurious interest rates, which they can do currently under New York law. And a lot of these financial companies, if you look into them, they're tied into to rather unsavory characters as well. Another thing that's being explored in the federal litigation that's pending that I'll talk about in a little bit. A recent case in Brooklyn that I do want to underscore that I was involved with. The plaintiff was an 18-year-old emigre from Ecuador. He arrives here in the United States. He quickly receives some bare bones OSHA training, and he gets a job with a construction company. He's on the job for about 1 week and claims he fell down stairs due to debris at the construction site. He had photos of his accident on his phone. I can't share them due to confidentiality issues, but it was laughably staged. Um, he retains a firm that's swept up in some of these RICO suits that I'll discuss in a little bit. And again, he's right into the pipeline, seeing the usual doctors, going for the usual surgeries, claiming he can never work another day in his life and he needs millions of dollars. He used three litigation loans and the money he received from his workers' compensation, and this was fleshed out during discovery, to pay the coyote, essentially the human trafficker who brought him to this country illegally. That was discovered. Ultimately, this case was resolved, I can say, but not before a lot of this stuff came out, greatly reducing the some of the issues surrounding the claim. Some of the pending RICO cases and patterns we see um, are starting to emerge, and we're trying to keep track of them. Beginning in early 2024, several insurance companies brought civil RICO claims against law firms and healthcare providers, alleging coordinated schemes to defraud insurers by inflating the value of personal injury cases. These cases were brought under the Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organizations Act in federal court. Most of them are in the Eastern District of New York. The cases, many of them are in their early stages. Some have been dismissed on procedural grounds and are pending on appeal. But basically, the gist of all of them, and there's very complicated issues with the law and certain aspects of the alleged fraud. But the gist of it is that law firms are using runners to recruit plaintiffs for personal injury cases, whether or not they are actually tied to a fraud ring that stages accidents. We're seeing some of that, or they're tied into construction sites where they either encourage people to file these claims or to stage accidents. Again, many of the plaintiffs, particularly in the labor law cases, are undocumented migrants who sometimes they owe these coyotes thousands and thousands of dollars, and they are essentially coerced into faking these accidents in order to get money for these criminal organizations. So a lot of that is unfortunately going on. Somewhat difficult to prove, but I think a lot of that is certainly going on in New York. They're then referred to doctors who are tied in with these law firms for treatment and surgery that is not medically necessary. Their injuries, if they even have any, are greatly exaggerated, and they're processed through the New York court system through their lawsuit, and without the ability to argue liability, it's often more advantageous for these companies and and firms to try and settle these cases earlier, because some of these verdicts in New York can get very high on these labor law cases because all you're talking about is damages. You're not really discussing liability. Here are some of the pending lawsuits here in New York. Uh, some firms to look out for, and some of these firms have a national footprint, so you might see them not only in New York but in other states, particularly on the East Coast. Goriab is definitely a firm you want to look at if you're looking at any claims or dealing with them at all. Wingate is another firm. Liakis. Dr. Appizides, if his name comes up in any of your claim files, it's definitely a red flag that you want to address. The Bogaraz law firm as well are certainly people that you want to look into if you have any claims involving them. And I think we'll have some doctors as well here who should immediately raise red flags if you're dealing with them on any of your claims, or they just come up in the course of business. Dr. Weinstein, he's a DO. He does a lot of orthopedic surgeries on a lot of these claims we see that are again, not exactly not exactly on the up and up. Thomas Kolb, he's a radiologist. If you see Kolb Radiology, you may want to retain your own radiologist, get the films, and make sure that the injuries that are actually shown on the film coincide with the surgery that these plaintiffs have actually undergone, because they can aggressively read some of these films to advocate for or excuse the surgeries that they send these people for. Surgicore, there's a lot of different Surgicore entities throughout New York, New Jersey. I think they're in Connecticut as well. I'd have to check. But again, a lot of doctors tied into that organization and that network of healthcare providers are involved in performing what seems to be unnecessary surgeries. Doctors Marola and Gerling, you certainly want to look at, as well, as they've been accused. Some of them have settled, but they're certainly tied up in some of this RICO stuff. Dr. Appizides, Dr. Capiola, as well. They all perform usually back surgery. We're usually seeing them perform fusions, although Dr. Appizides performs um, other surgeries as well. But they've all been named in the RICO lawsuits to an extent. And I do want to clarify, none of them, as I understand, have been charged criminally with anything. Um, I don't know if there's any type of criminal investigation by federal authorities or state authorities, but these people have been named in these lawsuits to one extent or another. And if they're in a claim that you're dealing with, you certainly want to address that. So I'm not accusing anyone here of any criminal wrongdoing or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that we're good on that, and we understand what we're saying here. These names should raise red flags for anyone involved in processing an insurance claim. How adjusters can help fight
Tom, we have a
fraud.
question. We have a question on
Oh,
this.
sure.
Are these unnecessary surgeries or pre-existing conditions, or you probably don't even know, right?
Sometimes we're seeing both. We're seeing both, particularly with the back, with with lumbar and cervical issues. A lot of times it's pre-existing degenerative stuff, particularly in middle-aged or older plaintiffs who then get these surgeries. They say they were caused by whatever accident they were in, um, and uh, and that's what we're seeing. Sometimes it's entirely made up, but it can be both.
Thank you.
Okay. How adjusters can help fight fraud. When the claim first comes across your desk, you're definitely going to want to get the worker's entire personnel file, determining how long they've been on the job. Often, if there's fraud issues involved, they will be on the job for a month or less before they have an accident. Their certification and training. Again, there's usually minimal to no training on these potentially fraudulent cases. So you certainly want to take a look at that, because there should be certain depending on the job, there's requirements or training that they should undergo. Disciplinary issues. Is there an issue with lateness, with not showing up? Again, those usually come up in these fraudulent cases. Prior reported injuries. Sometimes they'll try and there'll be a witness, so their accident is not as successful as they think it might be, but it still should be reported and recorded. And then a week later they'll try again to fall down or fall off a ladder. And this time maybe no one saw it, so they'll be able to get their claim through. Addresses too, and this is a big one that sometimes we have, and I include defense attorneys and insurance companies have a blind spot towards, and we're trying to rectify with building databases. Many addresses we've noticed are associated with fraud, and not just because the accidents happen there. Sometimes we will have that where 25 people have fallen down the stairs at a particular apartment building in a month, but some people will use the same address. A lot of these fraudsters. And you'll have 6 or 7 plaintiffs. You may not realize this because they're not all on the same case, but you'll have sometimes even more than that, dozens associated with the same address, the same apartment. That raises red flags right there because that's a scam, and that's not always something that we look at, but we should be cognizant of that as we move forward, particularly if there's a suspicion that the claims might be fraudulent. Uh, Fighting fraud with artificial intelligence. I'm sure we've all uh, heard about artificial intelligence these days, and sometimes it's a little bit more sizzle than steak, particularly with legal AI. But it can be very helpful in detecting patterns that are not always readily apparent, particularly in the early phases of a claim or lawsuit. Many of these claims, in particular, if they're tied into a fraud ring, involve relatives, runners, again, addresses that are all related. And if you're handling a claim here, your friend is handling a claim down the hall, you might have the same address, or it might be the claimants might be in-laws, etc., and you wouldn't know that without having some sort of database to search in, or some other way to do it. AI is very good at that, and we're utilizing that here at our firm, and I know insurance companies are using it as well to really detect some of these patterns in fraud. AI certainly has its limits, but it is good at sorting through wide, disparate data sets and recognizing these patterns, which are difficult to detect, particularly how we sort of handle claims and cases one at a time. So compiling an integrity database on claims and working with insurance companies and law firms to identify fraud early certainly helps to limit costs, particularly if you bring counterclaims related to fraud. In a lot of these cases, sometimes they'll just be dismissed outright, and these particularly if it's just out and out fraud, a lot of times the cases will just be dismissed, or they'll change lawyers, and you can certainly limit costs early on. The earlier you catch it, like a cancer, the better off you'll be in addressing the claim or the lawsuit. How insureds can help fight fraud. This should definitely be something insurance companies are coaching their insureds on. Thorough reporting on the accident. You certainly want to catch the who, when, where, how, sort of the general reporting stuff. You'd be surprised how often this basic stuff is not documented in an accident. Witnesses, you definitely want to get the names of witnesses, supervisors, the equipment they were using, who owned the equipment, where did they get the equipment, were they trained to use this equipment, their job title, their training, any certificates they received. All this stuff should be collected and readily available. Particular complaints of pain immediately following the accident are are something you certainly want to look into as well. Uh, Oftentimes we'll see relatively minor complaints of pain, or maybe they say they hurt their arm or their back or whatever. They'll go to the hospital. They'll be looked at, discharged shortly after entering, um, and uh, they'll be sent home, and then suddenly, lawyers call them whatever, if they're involved with these fraud rings already, suddenly they need all these surgeries. But those initial complaints of pain and certainly the hospital records can show that they're not as injured as they may now claim to be. Uh, Cameras. You certainly want to put cameras up. A lot of contractors are doing it now on sites. They've caught some people, frankly, who are staging falls. You can see some of the videos on YouTube. They're actually pretty funny with how these people fall down off of ladders or Baker scaffolds. I think it's well worth the cost. I know some camera systems can be expensive, but when you're fighting and talking about the millions of dollars that can arise in just one of these claims, I think it's well worth the cost. And more importantly, those cameras, those recordings, if you have them, need to be preserved. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when a case gets to my desk, and there was potentially uh, dash cam footage or recordings that existed but were not preserved for one reason or another. Insured should have a very thorough system in place to record and preserve any types of accidents. This is just some media coverage that we're definitely seeing. I know ABC ran a story. This is a few months back regarding the construction fraud in New York City. There's an excellent video of a staged accident there. There was an article in Newsday as well a few weeks back discussing the spiking insurance rates that I addressed earlier, as well as some of the doctors that I mentioned being involved in these fraudulent surgeries. Kristen Thorne, she is an independent journalist who has done a great job with addressing this story. She has a podcast and has several other social media posts and YouTube videos about this issue with New York in particular. But again, it's starting to expand out, and she's done a good job of documenting it and highlighting some of the more egregious cases that we're seeing and that we're dealing with. Aside from lawsuits, there are potentially legislative solutions that could address this. Albany, New York, is not particularly interested in addressing this. There's plenty of lobbying from labor unions and the plaintiffs' bar that prevent uh, anyone from really touching New York labor law. But there have been some individuals who are introducing Michael Fitzpatrick. He's mentioned in several of the articles. He's introduced legislation to add comparative negligence standards on workers who might be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. You would think that wouldn't be controversial, but I don't know how. I don't think the bill's advanced at this point. But yes, as I said, the absolute liability, even if the worker's under the influence of drugs or alcohol and it's proven, there's still no comparative negligence that you can argue as you would in a motor vehicle accident. Absolute liability applies. Also, if they're not following safety standards. Again, that would be a common sense amendment to the statute that would certainly fit in modern times and bring New York more aligned with every other state. Um, but it doesn't seem like there's any political appetite in Albany to address that. In fact, several New York Assembly members asked New York Attorney General James to investigate the insurance companies that brought the RICO complaints, just to give you an idea of politically where New York is on this statute and what their agenda is, at least some New York politicians. For just some additional context, Illinois repealed their scaffold law in 1995, and construction-related fatalities decreased by 28% over the next 6 years. So there's really no correlation. No study I've seen has indicated that this law does anything to protect workers, and that's the uh, line you'll hear from proponents of this law that, oh, well, workers need it. It's for protection. Otherwise, workers will be exploited, blah, blah, blah. But there's really no evidence that workers in any other state, and New York's not the only state with large buildings anymore, it's not 1885, who are that they're any less safe in other states or unable to recover if they're injured as opposed to New York, which is the only state with this law. Potential involvement with law enforcement is also possible here. Certainly, as these RICO cases progress, and if they uncover any evidence of criminal wrongdoing, the Trump administration is less friendly with the plaintiffs bar than the previous administration. Certainly less friendly with the New York Attorney General. The southern and eastern districts of New York, um, the attorneys there have obviously recently with the new administration, there's new attorneys there. They seem more receptive to investigating, at least acknowledging and potentially prosecuting insurance fraud. If there's evidence of wrongdoing, I think we might see some more movement from them. Certainly an interest and an appetite for uh, pursuing criminal wrongdoing if it rises to that level. Consideration of the evidence in these RICO cases move very slowly through the crowded Eastern District, as you might imagine. So yes, you're certainly going to want we're certainly going to want to monitor them and see what happens there. And this is an emerging issue. Again, it's really sort of only bubbled up in the past couple of years. I suspect it's been going on a lot longer. And I think it's again, we focused on New York a lot here, but I do think it's going on in other states as well. It may not be as pronounced. I think there's some RICO lawsuits in Florida as well that we're monitoring. I don't practice in Florida, but I know that I see articles from time to time about that. Okay, and that's what I have. A bit early, wrapped it up a bit early, but I do have some time for questions.
Do you see similar types of fraud in other types of businesses nowadays?
I'm starting to see it more and more in transportation. We have a large trucking practice here as well. Starting to see fraud rings, in particular accidents that occur at certain areas. Again, this is my practice is focused on New York City, but I've seen reports of it elsewhere, where we're seeing staged accidents, certain parts of Brooklyn, certain parts of the city, that just the same accident seems to be happening over and over again, sort of at the same time, with trucks like, you know, large commercial trucks being targeted. Um, so yes, we're starting to see fraud. I think it's a problem that permeates all aspects of liability insurance, not necessarily just New York labor law and construction.
You feel like the doctors and the hospitals are getting more aggressive against fraud, or more inclusive in being part of the fraud?
Well, I don't know if the hospitals directly are involved. I think some doctor practices, particularly some of the ones that I mentioned that have been named in the lawsuit, certainly have a financial incentive to produce or to have their patients undergo more surgery, not less. So, plaintiffs in those types of cases, also, the more surgery you undergo, typically the more your claim is worth. So I think there's a financial incentive for wrongdoers and fraudsters to undergo this treatment, these treatments and these surgeries. Doctors, in particular, and a lot of the defenses we're seeing from these doctors is that, well, it was my determination, it was my medical determination that this surgery was necessary. Another doctor might disagree, but I actually performed the surgery. I opened up the patient, and this was my uh, uh, opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, blah blah blah. So that's their defense. They're not committing any fraud. They're doing these necessary surgeries. It's difficult to expose. It's difficult to expose that. Um, I think the easier cases to find are certainly the staged accident cases, where the accident is rigged from top to bottom.
From an underwriter's perspective, what other types of businesses other than contracting have valid elevation related risk?
Oh, that's a good question. For a defense attorney, I don't know. Construction have in New York, it's limited to construction sites. You can't invoke New York labor law if you're not a construction worker. So if you're just and then sometimes this happens with janitors who are changing Christmas wreaths and things, and if they fall off a ladder, it has to be in the construction field. But that is a good question. I'd have to think on that a bit and maybe get back to you.
Do you think poor economic conditions will make the claims get more frequent and seeking of larger rewards?
Unfortunately, I think it can. Plaintiffs, in particular on these labor law cases and in New York in general, are usually from lower socioeconomic status. So there's obviously a financial incentive for them to engage in this type of behavior, particularly when they have a shot at obtaining millions of dollars in a settlement or a jury verdict. So yes, poor economic conditions will certainly breed fraud claims simply for the financial incentive involved.
How will AI impact fraud claims, and what can carriers do?
So AI again is I'm seeing different programs from a legal perspective. I know several insurers that I work with are investigating or have AI programs that are really looking at this data from different claims, sometimes across different insurance lines, and determining if there is a connection. So I think that's where AI can certainly be most impactful in recognizing and sorting through these large data sets. And as AI becomes more advanced, I think it'll be easier to recognize these patterns. But I know fraudsters will always there'll always be fraud. It'll always be with us. So I think they'll just come up with something else. Um,
What about people using AI to create the claim totally fake?
I haven't seen too much of that. Although as AI is getting more and more sophisticated, I think it'd be possible, and certainly something to keep in mind, along with everything else that all the other problems that AI is imposing on us. Definitely something we want to keep an eye on. But I haven't seen any staged accidents or anything involving AI generated images or videos.
How about things like fake car claims? You've seen that, probably seen a lot of those too.
I've seen quite a few of those, quite a few where they claim it's a rear end collision. I think there's a video. It's pretty well circulated on the internet now, where people tied to a fraud ring back up into a truck and then claim it was a rear end collision. Fortunately, many trucks now have dash cam footage and even more sophisticated recording equipment, so they are able to document a lot of these attempted fraud claims. In that case, they were able to do so, and I think the plaintiffs, the perpetrators, were actually charged criminally for staging that accident, really essentially causing that accident.
I remember back when I was in the agency side, they would have the people full of bus full of people, and everybody would jump off the bus and run and jump in to pretend they were part of the accident. And
That one's old. Yes, we've seen that, and that's kind of always going to be there. But yes, these deliberate causes or deliberately staged and caused accidents are what we're seeing a bit more of.
you think the latest change in government in New York City is going to impact how
Difficult to say. Difficult to say. I'd imagine New York City government is generally and New York is a very plaintiffs friendly jurisdiction, as you can tell. The second American Tort Reform calls it the second worst judicial hellhole in the United States. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, in particular with the incoming Mandami administration.
is
I
there
see.
any good?
The central place to review all lists of doctors.
Yeah,
Publicly, I am not aware of it. If anybody, though, if anybody wants that information, I do have it. I do have a centralized list that we keep up to date on these doctors and these allegations. So if anyone's interested, feel free to email me or contact me, and I'd be happy to share that.
just lost my train of thought. Do you see other impacts of AI on your practice?
In general, yes, certainly with organizing files and researching. Pretty much every firm, I think I'd say almost every business right now has to try and incorporate some form of AI into its fold. Just because it's the buzzword these days, if nothing else. AI can be very helpful, certainly with research, and there are legal programs that are designed for it. I use it to an extent. You got to be aware of its limitations, though. Many attorneys are getting in trouble for citing to fake cases that AI will generate, and that's because they're using ChatGPT or some other form of an open AI system that's really not designed to perform legal research, and you can be sanctioned for that, and it's certainly embarrassing. So yeah, that's an issue that's arising in law that you have to be aware of.
About a person that has an unnecessary surgery but dies. Is that
So if they want to continue the lawsuit, which they often do, their estate would have to appoint a representative or administrator, and it would proceed as though it wouldn't have an impact. It would proceed normally as though the person were alive. If the death was somehow related to the injuries, the cost might have a wrongful death issue, and the cost of the lawsuit might go up.
do you foresee any changes in New York scaffolding law? Do you think they're going to stick in their rut?
No, the only way I see it is if and I don't think there's any political will for this at the federal level, but I think the only way Albany would really be motivated to make any changes to it is if the federal government preempted it. They did this with leased vehicles going back. It's called the Graves Amendment. Anyone who deals with motor vehicle claims is or commercial motor vehicle claims is probably familiar with it. Um, but if the federal government preempted it and maybe got these claims into federal court some sort of way, but that would take a literally an act of Congress. So I don't think it doesn't seem to be high on too many people's agenda. I'd imagine New York senators and many New York representatives would be opposed to it.
Any other tips on how underwriters and claims people can help combat fraud or prevent fraud in
Really
their
just
underwriting
recognizing
and
it early. If there's one thing you could take away from this, I'd really recognizing it early, certainly being aware of it. You don't want to get sort of where you start thinking every case is fraud. There's certainly legitimate claims, but when one of these red flags arises, like potentially the name of a doctor or the accident, just the dynamics of the accident don't seem or seem like they suggest fraud, it's worth looking into. Might be nothing, but catching it early, that's the key.
any other questions anybody had or any final thoughts, John, on anything you missed?
I don't think so. Any other questions though?
Jan?
Yeah, I'm just going to say thank you so much. I love listening to you, John. It's depressing on the fraud and the amount of it. It really is. But you know,
Imagine how I feel.
yeah, I'm sure. But we really appreciate you coming today. You've been so great to come present, and I'm sure useful information. And I just want to say thanks. And I know you'll be coming back for other times to present.
Looking
Sue,
forward to it. Looking
yeah.
forward to it. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. And if anyone has any questions that they think of later or wants any additional information, feel free to email me. I'm very Googleable or on LinkedIn.
I know how to
So
find you.
yeah, don't be shy.
Please check out our various LinkedIn pages and YouTube channels for all of our videos and all of the articles. And we thank you, John, very much for being here today and doing this presentation for you. We always learn something, even if it scares the heck out of us. I'm just
No
glad
problem.
I'm glad I'm
Thank
not a lawyer, so.
you. Thank you.
Okay.